Why are you still not being chosen? You've done everything as you should have done. You've shown up, you've been kind to people, you've made tough choices, yet you are still not being chosen. This is karma, but it's not what you think. This is karma you've created, and because you've created it, you can get out of it. It's painful, but it's doable. And this week you're going to learn why. Welcome into the Energy Update. I'm Daisy. This is Spiritual Mixtape. This is your update for the 22nd to the 28th of June. And this one is called The Pain of Not Being Chosen. I know that I'm going down a route that is a little bit spicy, and I don't love to dwell on the pain aspect of things. But without acknowledging this pattern that we're in, we can't graduate from it. And this is the week that we are being given strategy. That's the only way to put it. The universe is giving you strategy. It's giving you very kind and gentle ways of learning quite tough lessons. It doesn't actually suck. Not in the way that some of the weeks and the months this year, and oh my gosh, last year, really put us through the ringer. But there is this big pile up coming. On the 29th, so a week on Monday, we have 5 aspects or 5 transits all on one day. A full moon in Capricorn, a Mercury retrograde, Jupiter changing signs, squares with the lunar nodes. Everything's happening in one day. And this week, we have 4 energies working in pairs to give us strategy on how to deal with what's coming. I always say, don't be scared, because don't. We have been given this week a karma week, really a karma month, even though there's been testy days and growth spurts and growth pains. We have got a week where we can integrate these new lessons, these new strategies, and actually kind of run into Monday being like, oh, I'm ready for the test. I'm ready for this moment. Give it to me. And I do say this from a place of being so dyslexic. And when I was at school, I ended up with a scholarship for a boarding school. And it wasn't until I went there that I was assessed for dyslexia. Before that, when I was in the state system, nobody was aware. And when I went there, they were really honest with me and said, you're going to fail your exams if you don't get a lot of tuition and work really hard. I thought that I'd worked hard to get into that place, to get that scholarship. It hadn't occurred to me at 14 anyway, that the worst was coming. But the one great thing that that place did for me is it gave me incredible strategy when it came to exams. Because there's no way with the way that I read and the way that I spell that an exam would be easy for me without strategy. But after 2 years of tuition and really thinking I was stupid, I went from thinking that I was bright enough to thinking I was stupid, having to apply all these things that they taught me without really seeing great results before. My mock exams weren't great. I didn't feel great. I was really choosing me and having blind faith in the fact that I'd learned the lessons that they'd been teaching me. Honestly, so in the UK, we have 2 sets of exams, one at 16 and one at 18. You can leave school at 16. I thought I was stupid. I was planning on leaving. I had a job. I'd been working that summer as an intern and I'd been offered a job to stay on. And it was what I wanted to do. It was in fashion. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And my mum was not a fan. I know my mum listens to the podcast. Not happy with the choice, but my dad was so supportive and was like, yeah, go into the workplace, get experience. You don't need people to make you feel stupid. Life's going to make you feel stupid. You don't need people to help on that front. And then we got to my exams and I got 11 A's and B's. Not what should have happened. Not what should have happened. Definitely not what I felt. But I had shown up. I had chosen me. And then I did opt to go back and finish my studies and went off to university after that as well. I say all of this because that result would have never happened if someone hadn't taught me strategy. Hours and hours, 5 hours a week, an hour every day of exam strategy and how to collate my neurodivergent mind and my dyslexia into power plays. But he taught me all of these ways in which my weaknesses became strengths. That's what this week is. This week is strategy if you want it. I say this as well in the written update. We always have free will. If you're not ready, you don't need to do it. But there is a thing that's happening right now. Let's just jump in, actually. I'm going to talk to you about karma, because it's one thing not to be ready and to need more time before you take the exam, before you graduate on, before you take on a new lesson. That's true, and that's right. So for anyone that's in that moment in their life, take your time. Take your time, but keep a casual ear and a casual eye open for the things that you like. Note them down, and as you feel stronger, start to incorporate them. Because this is a meaty episode today. This is about taking on choosing you, one of the most difficult things and one of the most painful. And to be honest, we're in this lesson for seven years while Chiron is in Taurus. So you've got plenty of time to deal with your wound of neglect, your wound of not being chosen. Karma. So let me explain to you what I mean. Karma, for my clients and for me, for the longest time, was about a debt that we were carrying from other lifetimes, from this lifetime. And it was something almost to be ashamed about, like your financial debt, like your credit card debt, something that you're like, oh God, I'm a little embarrassed about this. Two things can be true, contradictory energies being true at the same time, and karma and being chosen. Those are your two strategies that are working through the week, and they're really setting you up. I won't say success, but they're setting you up so that you can take on the 29th, which is the day of the full moon, and all the other energies. And what that is opening up, I won't call it a can of worms because I don't think of it like that. But I think if you were unprepared, if you were just milling around through life, which none of us are, if you are here listening to this podcast, you're someone that's consciously navigating the energy, being aware of your feelings, being aware of how you make others feel, and wanting to create something better than what you walked into. But if you're not that person, it's probably going to be a can of worms. And then we hit the eclipses, and we're almost back in that spin cycle again that we had in February. It does sort of get a little bit lighter in September, but it's a little computer gamey between now and then, and you kind of just have to get your skills up. I'm not a gamer, but you know what I mean. You have to get your skills up. You have to be willing to go back to the start and do it again if you haven't been able to get to the end of the level, to learn what it is to cross that bridge, or to, get that baddie, whatever the phrase is. And I love Love Island, so I've got some Love Island references as well in the podcast and in the written today. But all of this to say, let's talk about karma. So karma, as the longest time, is about the embarrassing debt of something naughty that you've done or did do on a past life, and you can sort of feel that clunky, heavy energy. For the last 4 years, I've been teaching it as something that's outdated. Not karma as a rule, we all have karma. But for you and I, for our community, we're not dirty energy people. So when we have a heavy energy that we just can't shake, it's honestly time to put it down. And that's part of the journey with karma. Karma isn't always a debt we're paying off. Karma we could have paid off for ages, but we're so attached to the identity of holding this pain and walking around, because maybe we've been doing it for lifetimes. Maybe our family line has been doing it for lifetimes. And we're just so committed to the terrible thing or the hard thing or the painful thing that we have created a karma for ourselves that keeps us locked into that energy. And it feels different. It honestly does feel different. I honestly think it was a karma from another lifetime in the last 10 years and being released from it. And when you are released from it, it's like, oh, but you don't want it back. You're not sitting there being like, oh, please, let's go through that again. It was one of the hardest moments of grief of my life. And the only way I can think of it, because it only makes sense, even though this answer is that it had to have come from another lifetime, which of course doesn't make sense. And you and I know that it doesn't make sense, but apart from in our hearts and with our intuition, we're like, oh, of course, that's the thing. I can only make sense of it by saying it came from a different lifetime, different timeline. When I was released from it, my chest got lighter. My body relaxed. Tears could flow. And I didn't really know why, because I can't remember the origin of it. Like some sort of magical book across many lifetimes. I'm reading some really good stuff at the moment, some really fun fiction about books. I just felt like it just closed. Somewhere in that plane between the soul and having a lived experience, there was a book that was just like, Daisy, your debt's done there. You don't need to bring that to another life. You don't need to deal with it again here. So after that, I was like, why am I so heavy? I know that I've dealt with that thing. I've paid it off, paid that credit card. Why is this still a thing for me? I started to teach it from a different point of view with karma. I started to teach it as outdated soul agreements and the difference in the feeling between the two and the weird things that you do when you're in an outdated soul agreement, especially with someone else that has actually come back into your life. And you're just like, oh, I'm just going to keep in this weird loop. But you have to stop it. You have to stop it and you have to walk away. And that is choosing you. I know that the pain of being chosen is very different for lots of people. And I don't want to trigger you because there are nuances on what you may feel or what your friend may feel about being chosen. And they are completely valid and legitimate. What I am saying about this is that there is a shortcut through the pain of being chosen, and that is to choose you. To choose you more and more and more so that it gets easier for the right people coming in to have an easy yes for you. Want to make it an easy yes. And I talked a lot about this on a podcast just before my operation. I called it Keep the Signal On. And I talked about my friend who was so devastated because he's made all these big changes in his life. He sold his last business and was starting again, following his heart, doing something that he felt called to do. She's a support worker, by the way, which is one of the most incredible selfless jobs. But he didn't get the first job and he was so devastated. Usually with a friend, friends in particular, I would comfort. But the first thing that came out of my mouth was keep your signal on. And it felt so urgent to say that to him, keep your signal on. And the reason being is I just knew that someone out there was looking for him. They had to be. There's no way you could go through all that change, all that karma, the amount of times he's had to choose himself, and then there not be a job at the end, or there not be that thing at the end, or that, that other door that you could take. That could not be his destiny for that really tough choice he made. Turns out today, he has 2 jobs. He started one of them and he's already being talked about for promotion. Of course he is. Of course he is. Your signal is not on when you are waiting to be chosen. Well, you have a signal, but your signal is waiting. You're an amber light. You're not a green light for go. You're an amber light. And in some cases, if you're very angry about not being chosen, you're a red light. You're an angry little red light. And we've all been there. And I've been sad at points where I've desperately wanted to be chosen. I think I still feel like that often. But this week gives you strategy. And it starts with the 22 days. So if you don't know about my lovely 22 days, I love a bit of numerology. I love to pattern spot. It's the benefit of ADHD and dyslexia. We like a maths related pattern to spot. Now, we have numerous 22 days, 4 a month, 3 a month, and only in October where we only have one. 22 days, like the number 22, like the number 2, is an amplification. It is a building energy, and we have loads of them until 2030. Mark these days. I'll put the little write-up in the Google Sheet into the show notes. They are your days to choose you. So if life gets busy and you forget to choose you because you've got bills to pay, because you are dealing with your family, because it's the summer and it's busy, these are your days where you are going back to choosing you. And whether you, on your 22 days, whether you decide to sit with your goals or you pick one goal, reading, ice skating, I don't know, whatever it is, you do them on those days and you build the skill, create your goals into real life, but you're not losing momentum and you're not losing sight of you. That's a strategy. On the Saturday, which is the 27th, Mars sextiling Jupiter, that's really the culmination of this particular strategy, which is dealing with the karma that you are creating. And I'm going to get to this. There is an energetic debt that we create when we do not choose ourselves. So when you are not ready, that's one thing. But when you are ready and you've taken a little bit of all the things because you are ready and you're like stepping up, but then you're, going back into the hole because you get back into fear or you get worried about losing the things that you created. This is very connected to last week's update. You create negative karma. You may, on the surface, out here in the 3D world, think that you're creating safety and abundance by not taking risks on who you're meant to be. But energetically, you are going into debt at the bank of karma. When we are dealing with a long period of looking at the wound of neglect, the wound of not being chosen, that creates a whole bunch of energetic mess where we loop this lesson. And the shortest way of getting out of it is to take control, which I know we've been talking about in terms of surrender, by taking control of who is choosing you. You don't need to wait for anyone to choose you and for that energetic boundary or that energetic bridge to be crossed. If you do it every day, if you choose your dreams, your aspirations, your hobbies, if you do that every day, you send a different frequency out into the world. You feel differently in your body. I put up a breathwork called Karma Release. And of course, how brilliant that I actually made it in March. It's now like a perfect time to bring it out in June. I didn't know when I made it in March that this was going to be a thing. I had some extra time in a recording studio. I thought to myself, I'll just make one about karma and it will come useful at some time. And of course, I was just like, wow, I've got that whole breath work. And when I went back and listened to it and dropped it into the community, it's all the answers that this week needs. It stops you protecting stories, but most importantly, it puts you into feeling love and forgiveness. Forgiveness is definitely a topic for a different podcast than this one. And I truly think that by the time we hit the eclipses in August, there's going to be a moment of navigating forgiveness, especially around the Chiron square at the beginning of July. But until then, we don't need to worry about it so much. Release this karma that you're carrying for no good reason. Release it and then pick you. And make the habit of picking you. And get out of the fuss of having a need for others to pick you. we are in a moment of creating autonomy. That's what Saturn in Aries is up to. And every time we wobble on that, Neptune is going to come in and get murky until we decide to come back to that point of clarity. And it's just going to keep guiding us there, choosing ourselves. And then it's a lovely bonus when others choose us too. So the final part of today's podcast that I just want to go over for the energy of next week. 2 days. Thursday, the 25th, Venus trining Saturn and the Sun squaring Neptune. And also Sunday, Mars enters Gemini. Both days have contradictory energy. Thursday, wild day. Both of those energies are saying different things. And this is where it is interesting when you listen to more traditional astrology and they're so assertive on these two energies being out there in the day, and they're not necessarily talking to you about the other aspects that are more subtle and maybe linking the two. These energies are completely opposite. Completely opposite. One is joyous and really links to the earlier on in this month where we had that nice conjunction with Venus. It should be love, loads of money and excess and loveliness, but it's not completely, because alongside it is the Sun squaring Neptune, which is going to be foggy. The way I look at this day, low visibility on a summer's day. So if you were flying a plane, you're relying wholly on your instruments. And what are our instruments? Intuition and time. Time and space are human constructs, but when it comes to the benefit of being human, time is a wonderful thing. We have time on our side. Do not rush into decisions this week outward. Don't rush into them really for the next month if you can avoid it, because we are hitting Mercury retrograde, which is what I want to talk about alongside Sunday's energy. Mars entering Gemini. Again, this is completely contradictory to Mercury retrograde in Cancer. Mars in Gemini is fast. It is swords with your words and your tongues. It is combative, but also so fast and so furious that it's quite enticing and almost sexy and wonderful and fast and all the things. Complete contradiction to Mercury retrograde, who is literally standing on its shoulders or standing behind it going, well, no. But they are going to be working together for that whole period that Mars is in Gemini, is the same amount of time that Mercury is retrograde. And there's going to be a dance between them. Every time you find the right words, Mercury retrograde with its verbal diarrhea and its bad communication is going to come in and squish it. Two things can be true. So rather than feeling frustrated about things stopping and starting and backwards and forwards, what can you do to strengthen your nervous system so you can be like, okay, this is fun. I'm in for the stop and start. What do I gain by not moving forward today? What do I gain by only taking one step forward today? How can I work this to my advantage? Or how can I use it to rest? How can I use this to not be a point of frustration? And I'm not telling you to be a Pollyanna and to spend every day looking for the silver lining. I don't believe that. And I hope that if you've been listening this far, you know I'm not that person. But it does really help to hold two energies, to hold two contradictions, to have two things be true at the same time, if you were always able to see where there is an advantage or an opportunity. Again, strategies. That's what the astrology, that's what the energy is doing this week. It is giving you strategy, because what happens on the 29th, beyond that full moon, is an opening up of whirlwind energy for the whole of July and into eclipse season. And then you know what happens? All of a sudden, we're at the autumn equinox. It's going to fly by. This retrograde, and I think this is the best place to end, but this retrograde, because I love a Love Island reference, is really going to ask you to stand on business. It is going to ask you to choose you and to show how you are choosing you. And I think that with the eclipses that are coming in August, that's the same. So you might as well get into the habit now. And I do say this from all my notes and really like looking into how I feel as I ask myself these questions. Where haven't I shown up for myself? Where have I wanted to be chosen before choosing myself? Where have I used that as a strategy to avoid, for me, it's a fear of failing. I don't have a fear of success. I wish I had one of those. Fear of failing. And I feel tongue-tied now because I know I'm hitting on a personal truth. So I say all of this as I walk through this energy with you, and I feel a little uncomfortable about having to grow up. I mean, I'm pretty grown up, but what I mean by that is standing on business, no matter which way the chips fall, is really easy when you're angry and when you've got a self-righteous moment or a cause to stand behind. But when you're doing it from a vulnerable place of choosing you before someone else has chosen you, before you've had that validation outside, it's hard. It's hard. And honestly, if it was easy, everyone in the world would do it. Everyone would have a better sense of autonomy and would all be fine, would all be a lot happier. That's not what happens. So don't be scared. Let's end on the thing that we said last week. You are just at the beginning of something you haven't done yet. You are just at the beginning of something you haven't done yet. So the choosing you, the feeling in your body, the holding in your body of two different energies that contradict each other but are there. And rather than opting for one or the other or judging one or the other, you just got to hold everything. You're just at the beginning of something you haven't done yet. So if you need a little bit of support between now and next week, get into that karma release breathwork. It's actually in the free side of the community. And we have lots of other fun breathworks dropping this week from the Cancer season 1, which I'll talk more about next week. The new moon in Capricorn doesn't drop until next week, but we have a wealth of free breathworks in there. And if you want to go deeper, there is the paid community. Just want to say thank you. Please keep dropping in the comments. Gosh, my gosh, we've had some great conversations this week. It's been really nice. I'm catching up on the older videos as well of making sure that I've replied to everything. But please tell me, how's your karma release going? How is choosing you? I do understand the pain of not being chosen. You're welcome to tell me that as well in the comments. And what are you allowing yourself to create? Okay, I'm Daisy. This is Spiritual Mixtape. I'll see you again next week for another update. Bye-bye.